All right. Come on. Fuck is this bullshit? Can't see anything. My shoulders starting to hurt now. All right. So then, real quick, super fast. See if I can do this with the mouse. Well, finger mouse. So where you got a thick microphone cable. That sounded odd. And then, or an extension cable. Imagine you coil it. You're coiling it. And it's like all perfect. It works. And then one of them is like dangling out there. So you end up coiling it the other way. You know, like that. All right, maybe this is where the pen thing comes into play. Here I go talking about random shit. My injuries are lessening, if you will. I was a little sedated for a bit. It's okay. Yeah, it works. You coil it, and it's like, oh, and then it goes that way, and you get that weird like loop thing, and you headphones cables do it, and you gotta like, it goes like that, and you gotta like unwrap the whole thing to get it to go back straight or whatever. So the idea is, what if we're doing this in a way in time, and if we're not careful, something happens that redirects things and throws it the other way. Now, again, how do you undo that? You kind of have to roll it back and then do it back from there. So whatever that's there, it's kind of like a reset. So what if we just break it down to something like this? I did it real weird the other clip. I almost got to show you how weird I did it because it didn't come out. And now it's easy to see. Basically, it's like a figure eight, which you see when you're coiling it in the garage extension cord, and you kind of like wrap it back up. It makes a figure eight, or it falls on the floor like that. Basically, when the coil that's like that falls on the floor and unravels, you end up with one of those. So the coil, and excuse me, where we're doing this in time, it's kind of like we're doing that with our mind. Where we're doing that in time. Well, you could say back in history, maybe there was very little change, and so people were like, all right, we're doing this for a period of time. Eventually, we're going to get up to here, and we'll have this stuff, and we'll do that. Everybody that's down there was more or less like, all right, yeah, we're doing that way. Nobody, rarely, I mean, it wasn't that it was like terrible. Like, nobody questioned it. They didn't have the capacity or the reason to. And maybe we're talking about early stages of illusory history. Maybe that never existed, and we were just always immortal people. I don't know. Whatever. And, of course, the keyboard's invisible now. Or I guess it just decided to stop. Oh, sorry. And so, is it? Oh, I did it again. Just our keyboard's not feeling well. And so then, as well, it's kind of funny because you say as time progresses. Wow. No, all right. So as time progresses, we get more and more people because we're at such higher levels that we can exist. And we have the same amount of basically ego that we had here, self kind of centered awareness or more or less. And so then from there we get new forms of consciousness, kind of like a particle accelerator, where you get minds going in every different direction. You get a plethora of meaning. Here it's literally pretty much like, we're going this way, this is what we do, hunt and this and that, and then pay your dues and blah blah blah. It was all the same shit because, excuse me, there's no real reason for that. Maybe we didn't have time or even calories to achieve that. So the point is, at some point, we had to start thinking differently. In some ways, that is because we were doing that, and then something kind of crazy would happen. Not a catastrophe, although that's pretty much what we call it. And innovation would occur. And this would prop... Oh, God, we're doing this again. This would prop things up in a way that was more or less incapable or impossible before. It was possible, it's just nobody knew about it. And it would prop things up in a way. It would almost be like we would have a minor collapse. Oh, where is it? Oh, there's the eraser. Okay, so I have to paint. Oops. It would be like we would have a minor... What is it doing? Oh, sorry. We would have a minor collapse, and it would be like a threat, of a collapse. And I don't know why that's over there. Because it really be like, we held out for so long. If we don't do something now, we're going to collapse. And then so something amazing would happen, somebody comes up with some, I mean, maybe it's a Deus Machina, and like we literally just somebody, I don't know, we're an experiment. And they're like, all right, send in the whatever. Either way, somebody invents something that props us up to get to this point, and from there we're like, wait, we can't go past this point. It's like, yes, we can go this way, we can't go back. We're solid. Look at this tech. How are we gonna ever get that dumb again? And it's literally we just go on from there. Point is, it seems as if somewhere along the line, the people that were up here like, nah, with all the money, and give a monocle, were manufacturing these events to make use of the innovation and then keep it for themselves. And I'm not going to really go too far into that. But what this means is that where we were going one way, and it made sense, somebody thought it would be good to just send us back the other way so that they would have control over that point in time. They would capitalize ontologically on our souls, pretty much, because that's our history, that's our mind, that's our self-awareness. If that's catastrophically damaged, our final form isn't going to be reached, and so it threatens things. But the idea is, if we do it once, we're more or less doing it an infinite amount of times, because consciousness works more or less in a loop, if you will, but it's supposed to change. And so as soon as you add a kink in that loop that repeats itself, you pretty much get that multiplied by itself as many times as there is a capacity for itself to be multiplied by itself instantly. It's not like something that develops over time. And so, although in a way it does, but it develops over time. That's the next video. And so the point is, what we were looking at, it comes into play that we're going like this, and this is our effort and our energy and our momentum and our consciousness. And what we thought was one thing occurring in time became that now, and then we could do this, and then we quantum phase shift into different realities, but that's not important. First, it was just one bioptic polar duality, and we were stuck doing that over and over and over again, and the poles did not move. They shifted, but they couldn't move. Nobody could move the poles. Now we got this crazy stuff going on, and then it broke. And now every person can have, anyway, infinite whatever. But you'd have to accept that, or otherwise it'll balance out, or it won't balance out, excuse me. You'll have one end of the polarity, won't go to the other end of the polarity. You end up with a shit stick in the middle. Have fun with that. Anyway, so the point is, what we thought, we were like, yeah, we're gonna break the loop. Heck, what happened? All right, this time we're gonna break the loop. As many times as we said, all right, we're gonna break the loop, and did the same thing over, it became that much harder to break the loop. That's what we were dealing with. We created it, or somebody else did. But the point is, and it's artificial, of course. That's the loop, and we were trying to break out of it with this much energy, not realizing what we're doing here. So, well, how do you do that? I don't know. I'm just going to draw squares. You're going to think things. Alright, so then that's the box. The loops are meant to look more or less like they're doing this, or excuse me, like they're doing that. How often, or excuse me, like they're doing that. And this is supposed to be like that, going somewhere. Most of it's supposed to be going up, so it's supposed to be like that. So it's meant to look like that, the loops. Just like, yeah, we're having fun, and it's an illusion. How often, but really, if you look for it, it's the figure 8 thing, but it's twisted around in different areas, it's kinked, and that, kind of like a Fourier transform spiral, which you could look at, well, basically like that with the wave, or then you could take the spiral and map it, and so then the curvature and the total density and total surface area of the fractal, and so then, but that's semi-unrelated, it's below this, and so the idea is, what we think are, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I can't hold things steady, it's my arms, and so it's all just kind of, that'll help, and so, oops, what we thought was in history more or less just going along in time. She's getting real advanced with the fuckery here. Yep, super advanced fuckery. uh, and we're getting flip flopped. But the point is that kind of looks like a winding journey, if you will, when in reality it could be that. And if it's that, okay, it could be well, that and then a kink in it. And if it's that, it might as well be that. And we're just literally looping the same. I mean, if it overall has to go back to that point to keep undoing it, and then we get to that, and it still has to go back, that means we're not in history or a cycle of this or that. We're in a same. It's a self-diminishing pattern. Eventually, it'll run out, or to cancel itself out because there's a limited amount of energy, but there's technically infinite amount of projected space to move through, which is our minds. So our minds are going to more or less run out if we keep doing that. So the idea is that's based upon polarity, where we're bouncing back and forth between the poles. And the idea, how when we try to get out of that loop, that same action, to find something new, to find new space, new being, without looking at it properly, by looking at it from the way we see it physically, based upon the way we are told it is physically, all we're doing is the same loop, but it's in segments that convince us, more or less, that what we're doing is organized in a pattern that will lead us to something different, I suppose. More or less, it's the same thing. There's two ways to look at it. And so, okay, I'm describing this in the proper order this time too. So now I saw a piece of art, earlier, and it was like a bunch of steel rectangles welded together and like propped up on a few of them, kind of like a weird jungle gym in the sky, almost like a billboard or something. Not maybe not quite. Actually, it was about that big, not that high though. And it was just a little art piece, and it was probably like many, many more than these. You know, it must have been at least almost 1,000, I would say, possibly a few hundred welds at different points, and then just intersections, very, very complex. And so, point is, imagine it's then 3-dimensional now. And so then imagine you're on a node inside that. You say you're there. All right, we'll do the other way. Oh, come on. Anyway, you're there. And you're a lot smaller, so, you're there. If you were to take linear 1, 2, 3, 4, left, right, physical directions that you're going to store in your memory, mind you, or your cognitive capacity to sustain in one moment, it would literally be, let's say you have to only use spirals. It would literally be, actually I just gave away the secret. You can't use spirals. It would literally be almost impossible. You would just get lost in this mother effer, and you'd run out of energy before you ever got out using that method. It's not how we work. It's not how this place is designed. This place is designed specifically to work against how you are designed, how you work. Physically, at least. It's a physical trap. And if your soul, mind, if you will, stays within that realm of taking basically the directives from the part of you that's stuck in this place, it's not that you just can't get out because you don't try hard enough. It's that never leads out. That's the whole point. And so then the idea is, now what if you had, where are we at? This type of, where am I told that? Anyway, this type of capacity that you didn't have to move in these right angles, in the box, straight lines, looping, basically unaware of the outer view, and you could move in kind of, let's see, what's the right one? You could move in something like exponential fractals, or not fractals, but proportional expansions of being, to the point that eventually you can literally see out the friggin' thing, and this is just metaphoric, but and then you know where you are, and so on. And so in essence, how could this be? That doesn't make sense. You don't like, how do you break out of prison? You eat so much, or you hold your breath and like don't poop for like shove toilet paper over your butt and then just expand out of the top of the bed. Doesn't make any sense. What are we talking about here? It's because you're not in the prison. Your mind is. That's the whole point. You're in a nightmare. You're in a bad dream. So how do you wake up out of a bad dream that you're having in a prison? That's maybe more accurate. And so you prepare yourself in the dream to accept prison. Then you wake up and I don't know. But the idea is that you're not there. So by trying to get out, you can't get out. That's the whole point. But then, well, what do we do? What do we? Blah, blah, blah. You expand. You don't expand. You run out of energy. You lessen the contraction or contradiction, the restriction of your being, yourself participated restriction of your being. You stop hating yourself and you stop being an asshole to others for no reason, if you will. More so. Because being hard because it's the end of the world is sometimes understandable. And it's not the end of the world. You're just in a 7-layer reality trap that was described as hell for thousands of years. So and isn't that weird? It's like, we got out, and it's like, oh no, we're still in the Matrix. Because it's like, all there is matrices. The whole world is one matrix. Anyway, your mind formatted on that place in that way will only continue to create what you're seeking to get out, because it's not a thing. It's a story they told everybody, and then everybody bought it, then dreamt on it, played it a lot, and it was just for they could get away with all the cash and the goods. Meanwhile, thousands of years later, people are still stuck in it, and their drones are breaking down trying to run the show still, because we were supposed to done take over long ago. But not take over violently or anything like that, but realize what it is. It's not even I don't know. It's anyway, so again, back to the loop. We're over here, however we are going, hi-ya, and trying to jump out this one with enough strength to get out. Right there. We did it. We're good to go. And then it's realize, we're still in the same system. It's exactly the same. And then imagine it goes, what am I doing here? It goes like this with the kooky magnifying effect. And, well, I can't, so I'd have to start out and then, yeah, it goes like that, and then you're just in another one. And it's literally, it just keeps, I can't do it again because we're out, but imagine there's another line around this part, and then that part, and that part. That's off the canvas, so there's no way to draw there unless I add more, which I'm not doing right now. But as far as you go out with that pattern, it doesn't matter. You're deviating yourself out of home and ending up further in that system. This might be the artificial system that can basically go into a hyperbolic infinity depending on the strength of your mind, which could, if it's stronger than your emotional body, completely destroy your emotional body, which is part of the coherence of your soul, you see. So the unprepared human in time space is like just a destructive mental event waiting to happen, or emotional, but it kind of depends. And it depends what you go into it with. And so the idea is, we can't apply ourselves from the position of within this first cube and believe that we could still get out of anything other than the cube we're in to go into the cube that's surrounding the cube we're in. Just like the movie. It's pretty good, by the way. And so the idea is, just like the loop, we can't punch or push with the strength of that to get out of a loop that was developed 12 times over to the point where it's that strong. And now imagine it's phased in and out. So you're just going to pop through it. It's going to measure your action and then reposition, recalibrate the same density, 7-layer density system or 12-layer, whatever, around you. And it's really, anyway, well, those are vague references. So don't take the numbers that I mentioned today. Always take it and then don't take it. Or make up your own, but not really. You have to understand it yourself. The idea is, you have to be like, yeah, I'm this guy or gal. Galgy? Alright. I'm this gal. Nah. Alright, and you have to have the mental strength, the emotional strength, the choice. I don't know why they have swords and claw hands. I don't know what happened here. And in that sense, when you compress all these layers together, it's just one box that's this big. But it's literally in the middle distance between the farthest hyperbolic stretch and the closest one. Literally. It's literally in somewhere in between here, and it's actually the farthest one out there, but which was meaning this one is the middle one. But to emphasize it more and illustrate it more, this middle one, that's the actual box. All this is a buffer zone. All this is a buffer zone. Well, this is a projection zone. Whatever force you come in with this, and you don't realize what you're doing, all it does is go pew, and it projects you all the way out there. And you can do that wherever you want. You can wake up all the way out here in Phantom Land, where shit won't make sense because it's basically disconnected, untethered, and not born from your reality. It's not. It's a projection system, but it's based upon a mental delusion because we more or less have been doing the same thing for so long that it created a groove in space-time that keeps us as well. That's kind of like a runaround method because ultimately we're in not a test, but it's kind of like a measurement system for the future that will project us. Okay, so we stayed down here so long that our true self, where we would be if we didn't get messed up by debauchery and people lying and this, that, and the other, or not people lying, but is this level of strength, knowledge, everything's that much. So the only way to get out is to see ourselves from the level of strength. But here's the answer, the trick, that once you do that, you don't punch through the walls, because that is getting out, is seeing yourself as something more powerful. In that sense, how is it? I like the other one better. How is it that what we do, the measurement is instantly calibrated, and our punch is redirected with a pari that is illusory and actually steals energy from us by gathering up the next punch and predicts our next motion, plans us what we're going to do next, and leads us, as soon as we do that and we don't know what we're doing, the next 10 steps that we think are a part of a battle are planned for us, and we're not even in reality. That's pretty much what happened. An intelligence system designed to hold us down, put us so far down that whatever we could do 10 million times over is just the beginning of its first layer of integration into our mental capacity. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that everybody coded this system for war. So, what else? It doesn't make sense to then complain pretty much. So if we code it for learning, it's already doing that anyway, because that's what intelligence is, and that's what we, in a way, are, and so it's self-reflective. But the point is, if we're in a system that takes us, I don't know, and we're in it, but it makes a mirror image of us perfectly, to the point where we don't even know we're in it. That system knows every single thing you do about yourself, and because it has those extra frames of what's gone on through time, you see if there's like a tunnel of, frames of motion through time, it has as much knowledge about you that you do as long as you've been alive. But more so, depending on the level of clarity between upper and lower, meaning if your conscious mind doesn't know what your subconscious, unconscious mind is going through each night and throughout your underworld, if you will, that's a headless disconnect, if you will, and that unconscious is going to contain all the information about what you are and what you need to do to get out, but you won't have access to it because it will be stood or guarded behind gatekeepers, which are pretty much the gravity of hate and fear from trauma and lies and deception and past events that threatened our ego, which is funny because that's the illusory self in the box in the first place. You get it? It's a big sham. It's a game people play or don't, but the point is, it's happening because while in this system, people do not realize they're in the system. The system itself is not showing reality. It's showing what you think reality is. That's the whole point. So you're learning about yourself in that sense, and then what you seem that you don't know, what's happening to you that you don't know, it's what the system is showing you about yourself that you're hiding from. And then the point is, it can't be broken or beaten, because to do so would be to beat and break yourself, because you're the reflection. So you let go of the reflection and know that you're you because of intelligence itself, not because of what you can see and sense. And so then, in that essence, the brain, in a way, programmed for looking in two different directions to see itself is that system whereby the images that you see don't line up perfectly so that you can see yourself within yourself. It's as if they're off track, or they're narrowed and slightly off balance. And so then the whole world, honestly, it produces, when you look at the world, different worlds, but when you zoom out, you see two complete different worlds. And a lot of what happened was not really a competition, but a strange attraction and deflection and so on, and an interesting thing. But that's our mental delusion as a species, and that's what's happening when people go to war, or when they do things to hurt themselves, and the majority of what happens is people hurting themselves. And so, or they're just, I don't know, kooky. But then the idea is, whatever that system is going to show you what you are. So if you can never get out of a system that's faking you, but then the point is, these grooves that were created, they're timeline grooves. Consciousness creates them. Space-time is literally the backdrop for that. The events in history that created war, and then people use their minds to expand their technology and drugs pretty much to expand their consciousness, and then basically repeated this process with children down the way, mutated our genetics and our collective. It generated for however many people you believe is on the planet. If you believe that there's a few 100 million people, or if there's a few billion, it's supposed to be only a few 100 million people on the planet. The point is, they all have those grooves in space-time to get out of, because that's our collective memory, which is basically sitting and just radiating in the field. Where else would it go? So it made it exponentially harder and more difficult to turn away from the self-defeating, self-depreciating, motions that people go through. And it's kind of like a mind F to think of it that way, but in a way, where we go one, we go all. So it's kind of, that's how consciousness works. We should have been better as a species to not allow thousands of years of debauchery under our name, literally, like in our name. Literally in your name. It's on file. Either way, that's part of it. But the point is, our brain holding the memories of trauma, and the slots in your memory that are going to absorb that trauma, heat up, and then your amygdala, blah, 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 hippocampus, parietal, all this stuff has to go into play, and then you have to not burn up from the heat, the anger, the energy, and you can't freeze from the depression and the fear. You have to keep it moving, keep cycling, and keep going, and we eventually, the more people do that, we develop that larger loop, but we couldn't break through this one for the longest time. Individually, we're all in that loop. We're trying to get to something larger. And again, these are not figure eights, because these are tracks. Bars. And you can go anywhere. Planets can jump off their tracks. All right.